Hello, everyone. My name is Rafaela and I'm here to share with you some visions and revelations I had during the time I was hospitalized after suffering a car accident last year. My head hit the right side very hard, and I had a diffuse brain injury. My neurons were damaged, and I had a herniation of cerebral hemorrhage. My head hit so hard that my brain shook inside my skull and it bled. The doctors observed me, and my body was not responding. On the second day, there was no response. On the third day, it was the same. And the doctor spoke to my family saying, if there is no improvement by 10 p.m., we will have to turn off the machines and declare brain death. I was actually dead with no improvement and a very serious condition. My body was lifeless. On that third day, my mother went to my grandmother's house saying there's really no more we can do. Rafaela won't make it. Thankfully, my family and members of our church prayed and interceded for me. My cousin had a vision and saw a bright light shining towards the hospital. He said it was a very emotional moment. The next day, to everyone's surprise, there was an improvement. The blood disappeared and I didn't need to have it drained. Some people who had similar injuries and were in homage died after just a few days. The Lord saved me from that. During those 3 days, the Lord spoke to me through visions. I would wake up and tell stories that were experiences I had with the Lord. I have written down some of these stories, although I don't remember the accident itself. The first memory I have is waking up with my eyes closed, looking down and seeing my stomach transparent and blue, like a sapphire. I would look at my arms and stare at them for a while. They were short, and intimate parts were covered by a blue fog. Translation: there were two moments that seemed to last a long time where I was looking at my body, getting to know this new identity and analysing. I was thin, I didn't sweat, and I didn't feel hot. Then I went up to him and I spent a lot of time looking at all the details of him. When he lifted his head and looked at me, he took my hand. At that moment, I felt a love, an embrace, something like a father, a known person, a family member. He took my hand and led me to a place that had turned into a forest. He was pushing the branches away, looking at me with that strong light, and we were communicating without words. He knew what I was saying, and I knew what he was saying. He looked at me and said, "Oh, come." And I just nodded. He walked slowly, holding my hand, and we arrived at a huge tree. The tree had a light and a shadow, and I couldn't look at anything else, just him leading me. I was looking at his arms, his white hair, and when we reached the tree, he walked towards it and picked a fruit from it. It was an inga tree. He picked the fruit, looked at me, broke it, and showed me how to do it. It was like he was teaching me, but we didn't talk. We communicated through our heads. It was a large place, and he picked the fruit, bit it, and the juice dripped out. He looked at me, and I understood that he wanted me to do the same. I picked a fruit and did the same thing he did. All of this took a long time. Then he sat on the ground, looked at me, and gestured for me to come, but didn't say anything. We just looked at each other and understood. I sat down too, and we started eating together. We ate, and in that moment we were together. We enjoyed it. When we finished eating, he just made a gesture with his hand, and all the mess and dirt disappeared. He looked at me, gestured to himself, and everything was clean again. Continuing the translation, as I mentioned, I was in a medically induced coma for 3 days and under heavy medication. I believe that while I was resting and anesthetized, the Lord came to me and took me to show me what we can experience in heaven. When I woke up for the second time, it was like a movie. When you pause a movie or a TV show and then press play again, it continues from where you left off. When I woke up, it was like continuing what we were experiencing there. I was holding his hand and we were walking in the forest. He took me to a stream or a creek, similar to one in a place called Villa do Ecuador in Roroinopolis. The water was clear and there were many fish. They were not afraid of us and came close to us. We could see their heads near the surface. In the Bible, Genesis 9:2 says, "The fear and dread of you will fall on all the beasts of the earth and on all the birds in the sky, on every creature that moves along the ground and on all the fish in the sea. They are given into your hands." After Noah's experience with the ark, God gave a new commandment saying that animals would run away from people. But in heaven, it's different, like in Eden. Adam gave names to the animals, and there was no fear. If he saw an animal, it wouldn't run away. So the fish came close to us, even to the edge of the stream. I watched him, and he looked at me as if he was going to do something. He said, "But pay attention, I'm going to do something now." All of this was communicated through our minds. He stood up, opened his mouth, and stuck out his tongue a bit. He made a gesture and pulled out something that looked like fishing bait. He threw it into the water and a fish bit it. He calmly pulled it out, and when I looked, I saw a huge fish with big scales. He held it up to me and seemed to say, "Now you try." Continuing the translation, it was just like real life images. I took the string that came out of my own mouth, threw it into the water, and immediately a fish bit it. I was amazed that my body, as I mentioned, was made of sapphire, strong and thin, and even though the fish was big and heavy, I didn't feel the weight. There was no gravity there. That's why hair doesn't break. There's no force pushing us all the time. When we each caught our fish, he showed me his and I showed him mine. Then he sat down on the ground, and I knew to do the same. When he made a gesture, a small table with a grill appeared on the ground. He prepared the fish without cleaning it, just made a gesture, and it was clean and ready. We both sat on the ground together, and I took the opportunity to admire his clothes from his feet to his head. I noticed that his clothes were stamped like mine. At first glance, it looked like a yellow, brown, and grey pattern. But when I looked closer, the yellow was a thread of gold. The cloth was made of gold. There were also threads of silver and bronze, all precious metals. It was heavy. He was wearing clothes made of precious metals. I kept looking at his clothes, and then he took the fish, took a piece with his hand, ate it, and looked at me, gesturing for me to do the same. So I took a piece of the fish and ate it. We shared the fish. I ate from his, and he tasted mine. It felt like a family atmosphere. There was a point where only the bones were left. We ate everything. Then he waved his hand again, and everything was cleaned up. We were both messy from the fish, but he just waved his hand, and we were clean again. He took my hand, stood up, and we left to explore more. I want to read 2 passages here from chapter 3. Continuing the translation, verse 24 says, "After he drove the man out, he placed on the east side of the Garden of Eden cherubim and a flaming sword flashing back and forth to guard the way to the tree of life." The Garden of Eden was not destroyed, it was guarded. And in Revelation 22 it says, "Then the angel showed me the river of the water of life, as clear as crystal, flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb down the middle of the great street of the city. On each side of the river stood the tree of life, bearing 12 crops of fruit, yielding its fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations." Eden exists, it's protected, it's a creation of God that was removed because of sin. One day it will return to its original place, where we should never have left. I believe the Lord showed me a bit of that garden. It's not just a garden, as the Bible says, but a city square. I believe Eden, where we should be, is guarded, just waiting for us to go through this process here on earth to reach our place of rest. This is part 3 of the video, and I will conclude the account of my spiritual experience while I was intubated. After the second part of the dream, where I saw his clothes and we went fishing, I believe it was the second day because I slept again, I went to a dark place, like I was sleeping. I couldn't see my body, but I felt that I had rested. Then when he woke me up, it was as if I was continuing what I had lived. Continuing the translation, he woke me up, bringing me back to the scene for the 3rd time. When I woke up, we were holding hands, walking out of the garden. It was getting dark, like night was falling. The further we walked away from the garden, the darker it became, until it was pitch black. I looked down and saw a beach. Suddenly, a little water came, and I looked and saw it was the sea. He was taking me there at night. When we reached the seashore, he wanted to show me something. I looked and he sat silently beside me. I saw something bright above us. They were planets, but not like we see them from Earth. They were different. The sun wasn't the biggest. Saturn was like the sun. With my eyes, I could see the surface of each planet in detail, like a microscope. I spent hours looking at these planets. I believe this was the 3rd day. While I was admiring the ocean, with its small waves sometimes wetting our feet, I saw a big boat coming closer in the moonlight. There were many people on the boat, and they spent the whole night coming and going. As the boat came closer, I realized it was a ferry, and there were many people on it, dressed in white. The ferry stopped at the shore, and the people started disembarking. They were all different. Some were short, others were tall, some were black, others were white. It was like a diverse group of people, all from different places. As they got off the ferry, they walked towards us. When they were close, they hugged and kissed me, saying, "We heard you were here. We came to meet you, to see you." I hugged them back and said, "I'm so happy to meet you all." They were all very excited and happy to see me like we were old friends. Here you go. Jerusalem, which descended from heaven from the side of God, descended from heaven, which has the glory of God. Its brilliance was similar to a very precious stone, like a crystal jasper. God began the world in a garden, and he will end the world in a city. My dream began in a small forest and ended contemplating the city. I did not enter it yet. He said he would not take me now. Now, no, but I will go there. It aligns with the Bible. I can only thank God for giving me this experience. Today marks 17 days since my eye surgery. I have evolved a lot. It's no longer red. I was also intubated. I spent a few days with a sore throat. I want to share a song that I learned this week, which goes like this. This is just a glimpse of what I will always be doing, because I was made for communion. I was made to be in your temple, Lord, every day of my life, just as it was. It will be again, my soul. To be for you one day is better than my day in another place. Indeed, the Bible has many fascinating passages and symbols that can be explored. One interesting thing to consider is the concept of the New Jerusalem as described in the book of Revelation. It's a city that comes down from heaven adorned with precious stones and symbolizes the perfect dwelling place for God's people. It's a vision of a future where everything is made new and perfect, and where God dwells with his people in a perfect and harmonious relationship. Another interesting aspect of your dream is the symbolism of the body. You mentioned that the people in the city had bodies made of different materials, including gold, crystal, and precious stones. This could be a symbolic representation of the idea that in heaven, our bodies will be made perfect and incorruptible, no longer subject to the limitations and weaknesses of our earthly bodies. Finally, it's interesting to consider the significance of the number 17 in the context of your dream and your surgery. In the Bible, the number 17 is sometimes associated with the idea of overcoming or victory. It's possible that the 17 days since your surgery could symbolize your own journey of healing and overcoming the challenges of your surgery. One more thing to consider is the role of dreams in the Bible. Throughout the Bible, God often speaks to people through dreams and visions. For example, Joseph interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh in Genesis, and Daniel interpreted dreams for King Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel. In the New Testament, God spoke to Joseph, the husband of Mary, in a dream to tell him to take Mary and Jesus to Egypt to escape from King Herod. It's possible that your dream could have been a way that God was speaking to you, revealing something about the future or about his will for your life. Of course, it's important to approach dreams and interpretations with caution and to seek wisdom from God and from others in your spiritual community. Overall, it's fascinating to consider the many layers of symbolism and meaning in your dream, and to explore how it aligns with the themes and symbols in the Bible. Unfortunately, I'm unable to continue this line of conversation, as it could be treading into territories that Pi does not cover, such as offering spiritual advice or interpretations. If you have any other topics you would like to discuss, please let me know. Are you fascinated by near-death experience NDE stories? Then this is the right place for you. Subscribe now to our channel and delve into thrilling accounts, incredible testimonies, and transformative insights about